you cannot share, right?
Now I can.
Would you like me to share? Oh,
Now I'm sharing, correct?
okay. Okay, yes.
So can I begin? Is there an introduction or anything?
Yes.
You have already been introduced.
Let me introduce. Okay. เรียนท่านวิทยากรฝึกอบรมและน้องๆที่ฝึกอบรม Presentation ทุกท่านนะครับสำหรับช่วงบ่ายห้องนี้นะครับจะเป็นห้องฝึกอบรมแบ่งกลุ่มสำหรับ Presentation นะครับโดยที่Presentation กลุ่มนี้จะมีการฝึกอบรมโดยท่านรองศาสตราจารย์ปิยนาถนะครับแล้วก็ Associate Professor James Half นะครับห้องนี้จะมีเวลาฝึกอบรม45นาทีหลังจากนั้นเราจะแบ่งเป็น4ห้องย่อยนะครับสำหรับไป practice กันนะครับโอเคตอนนี้ถึงขอเชิญท่านอาจารย์ปิยนาถและท่านอาจารย์เจมส์ได้เลยครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you. So James, you can start.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here to talk to you about presentation and what you're going to be working on over the next few months, I guess. And the focus of your topic is going to be peace. You've been given a theme. Today, you're talking about role models. Now, what I want you to see from the start is you should come up with a good introductory title slide. So I've chosen the dove flying into the sky, into the light with this idea of peace, and then the title of the presentation with my name on the bottom right. If you can look, I am in the right corner. You can see me from about my chest up. You can check my eye contact where I'm looking at the screen, and it's an attempt to look at all of you. When you're doing the presentation, you have to think that you are presenting to a live audience. So we have this one slide. Now, for me, one of the most exceptional role models that I have had in my life when it comes to finding a sense of inner peace is Helen Keller. Now, I don't know if you know who this woman was, but when I was a child, I went to see a play called The Miracle Worker. And it was the story of a teacher who was hired to teach Helen Keller, who was both deaf and blind. So everything was eternal, and she had to learn by touch and by taste. And she said the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. And this is where I believe peace has its roots. We must find our eternal peace in order to be able to find peace externally and with others. Because if we are peaceful, then we can accept differences. So what I'm doing for you is I'm showing you some different techniques to begin your presentation. After you have introduced your talk, you're going to give the contents. 3-minute speech, I mean, it might just be the quote, Helen Keller, she changed my life. I'm going to tell you how and why. And now I have done the organization of the speech. Let me begin, and I go into the content. And then we will talk about in our presentation today why we are doing what we are doing with presentation, how to do it, how to organize. So already Ajahn Piyanart gave you an assignment about telling us who is your role model or who has affected you most when you are considering peace. Now, this is another example of a table of contents. You don't have to use just the straight format. Now, I found this on Google Images, and if you see, it's a peace building roadmap. Now, I could start my presentation. Good afternoon. Peace is at the heart of every aspect of our life. And I am going to talk to you about 3 types of peace: internal peace, external peace, eternal peace, everlasting, and external peace. Now, I don't want you to be confused. Ajahn Piyanart was worried. So if you look at the right, you could have done the same setup, done it a little bit, more clever using different templates, and you could have had accepting differences, permanent peace, and temporary peace. I guess these should actually be reversed if they were correct in the order. But you get the idea. You can do a visual in order to attract people's attention. But what you do not want to do is distract the audience. You are the presenter. Today, I am the presenter, and I am using my visuals to support, to make my speech, my presentation clearer, to make it more understandable, to make it more enjoyable. So we have these different techniques. You can be using PowerPoint. You could be using Keynote. Many of my students at the university and the trainers that you will be having in the next couple of hours, many of them are using Google Slides. I often produce my material in PowerPoint and then upload it into Google Slides, depending on where I'm teaching and what type of equipment I have. Because sometimes with Google Slides, if you're not having a good connection, you can have difficulties. So today I'm using a PowerPoint system, but it has been uploaded into Google Slides. Google Slides is especially helpful when you are working on a project with a team, like Google Documents, Google Slides, you probably know. You can all be working on it to improve on the material. So, Ajahn Piyanart told you last week that the purposes of your presentation are threefold. They are to inform, they are to persuade, and they are to inspire. And when you're talking today about your role model, you are informing the audience about who this role model is. And you are trying to persuade them to believe this is an important individual in this area of discussion. And then you want to inspire them with the material and with the life of this individual. So I said, Helen Keller, I told you about her life. I then told you how it affected me, and I would hope it could affect you. And then I attempt to inspire you to attempt to find this sense of internal peace. For your presentation, you must prepare your body, your mind, your message, and then your matter, manner, and method. And we can consider the slides, though in the scoring afterwards I'll talk to you about, we have the matter and method as part of the PowerPoint of the slide presentation. If you look at the visual, and this is something to remember, now online, you won't have the difficulty because, for example, I'm looking at my screen as I look at you. But when you give your live presentations, when you do the semifinals, we would hope that possibly you could work with your professor, your teacher, your Ajahn, your crew, and that you could be standing in front of a screen, in front of a monitor, where you could be presenting, and then you never want to turn around and look back at the screen. Just like this picture shows you, you look towards your audience. So have notes like you do for a public speaking, but do not turn around and face the slide presentation. You should know it beforehand. So why? The first element that I showed you in my contents, you have to decide what is the intent of your speech. Why are you giving it? And we had the three ideas of inform, persuade, but why specifically? What do you want to tell your people and why? And make sure what you are doing is giving some new insight. You don't want to just repeating what the people already know. And you want to be unique. You want to stand out. And you want to sound, and you want the information to be authentic. Possibly you are going to be presenting a solution to a problem, a small problem or a major world problem. And you are going to come up with your message, the statement of intent. Why are you doing this presentation? Why are you telling us who is the most important person for you, your role model today? In the future, you are given another theme. You're already having the beginning of the intent, but now you have to come up with your specific speech, and you want it to be unique. And so remember, when you're given a theme, the first ideas you come up with are often the same as everyone else. So you must do deeper brainstorming. Do it with your family, do it with your friends, do it with your teacher, so that you come up with a new and unique idea for your speech. Love and hate. The acceptance, going back to that first of the three pieces that you are talking about. And this is a very, very strong visual image of the two fists. I can come right up to you and I can now start my speech with an image like this. Why can't we find love and understanding amongst all of us? What are the problems? So today I will tell you some of the problems we must solve and then give you my interpretation of a solution, believing that if you find internal peace, you can then accept outside ideas that are different than your own. John Lennon a hero in my lifetime. I grew up with the Beatles and his very famous song, Imagine. Imagine no country, imagine no religion. It's a very strong image. Again, talking about role models today. If you didn't do this, this is something to consider for the future. And when you start developing your presentation for the preliminary and hopefully the semifinal and final rounds. Now, just for you to have a comparison, here is John and all of the lyrics for his song. But if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, the reason I show you this is it can distract your audience and that they start to read all of the words. If they are reading all of the lyrics, then they are not totally listening and hearing everything you say. They are only partially listening. They are only partially hearing. You want their entire attention. So when you produce your slides, remember this. You want them to support your presentation. You do not want to lose your audience in the slide. So the organization that you will follow, the structure, the greeting and introduction. I started, good afternoon. I told you I'm going to talk to you about presentation and peace. I gave you a preview, an outline of my speech. I am now giving you the content. I told you first, I will tell you why. Number two, organization. I will tell you how. This is the signposting. At the end of the speech, you summarize what you have talked about. I summarize about Helen Keller. I summarize about why John Lennon was so important or has been so important in my life. I give you a conclusion, a question to think about, a job, an action to follow. Now that you understand what I believe is important about peace, what I believe that John Lennon was trying to teach us in the song Imagine, I hope that you will take these words and include them in the way you live your daily life. So I have called an action, and you want to get this towards the end of your speech. Remember that you want to have examples, statistics, and testimony. Testimony from someone else, a quote, statistics, graphs, right? To support your argument, to support what you are trying to persuade people to believe, and make sure you identify the sources. I identified Helen Keller. I identified John Lennon. I identified the organization that set up the 3 types of peace that I mentioned. And remember, visual communication, the pie chart, the bars, the line graphs, these are all important to support. You want to gain people's attention so they better understand your speech, but it does not distract from what you are saying. This is the important thing. Not too many words. Some people recommend no more than 25 words to a slide. Not too many words. Good visual, good match between the words and the pictures. Okay, and so here I'm using my visuals, pictures to talk about manner. And even though we are doing it by Zoom, my personal appearance, I shaved my head and my beard earlier today. I wore a nice dress shirt. Remember, your appearance is the first. People sometimes say first impressions don't matter. First impressions matter. They're very important. You see me come up, I look clean, I have a dress shirt on, still collars open, a little more relaxed. I am looking at the screen, attempting to look at all of you that are watching me. Eye contact is important, especially when you start to get into the latter rounds, and especially the final, where you are going to be live. There is movement, but not too much movement. I use hand gestures when I'm speaking to emphasize, not always, not continually, but I use them at the important points. Stance today, I'm sitting, but I try to sit straight and not slouch down or lean. I'm sitting up, and if it's a good stance, I stand comfortably. If you look at all of these people, the pictures are mostly from the waist up. Okay? Facial. If you are talking about something serious, don't smile. If you're talking about something joyful, give it a smile. That will support what you're doing. So you'll have the visual picture, you'll have the speech, and the presentation, all of these assisting you. So the facial expression, all of this is important. All of it is vital when you are giving a presentation, whether it is on Zoom or live. And now the next. So volume, how loud, how soft, especially now with Zoom, with less of the visual expression, volume becomes important. Pitch, do I go up or do I go down? You do not want to sound like a monk that is chanting and very flat and monotone. You want to change the pitch and tone of your speech. You want to speak quickly at times in order to gain attention, or slow down. And you use this with your visual presentation. Pauses are very important. I stop, I'm silent, I capture all of your attention. Silent pauses. Be very careful not to go, like I'm happy. Well, what does like I'm happy mean? I want to know if you're happy. So be very careful with colloquialisms and make it sure your vocals change according to the topic you are discussing. John Piyanart sometimes complains that I speak a little too slow, and I'm from New York. In a presentation, you've got to think of who your audience is. So how fast and slow, what should the rate be? How strong the clarity and simplicity of the language. You want the language as simple as the least educated, the least comprehensive, the people that understand the less. You've got to keep it at that level. And make sure your enunciation and your pronunciation is accurate. English, you can have accents from anywhere around the world, French, Thai, German, and you can still speak clearly and accurately in the presentation. And make sure, conversational, that the rapport that you are sharing your information with people you care about. So it's a conversational quality. Now, this is a little more writing, but these are reminders that I want to give you for your PowerPoint slides. Okay, I want you to use a consistent and simple design template. If you see, I have chosen one of the templates from PowerPoint. It's a basic blue, and I have a clear contrasting color, white for the font. It's easy to read. The blue is, if we want to talk about connotation, blue is a color that represents purity, that represents peace and the sky, and the white even more pure. And so I'm using colors in the slide that also communicate the mood that I want to create of a peaceful theme. Limit the punctuation. If you see, I have no punctuation on this slide, and I only have in the title the PowerPoint keynote, or it should have Google slide title. That's all capitalized. The rest, it's easier to actually read, not to have it all in capital letters. And there should be empty space, as I have on this slide. And I didn't give you pictures here. I used it when it was important to support my presentation. Good images and not too many slides. And remember to practice, practice, practice. Do not memorize your speech. If you memorize and you forget, you will have problems. Practice the speech so you know it, but do not memorize it. Practice it with your PowerPoint. Practice it just the oral presentation. Look in a mirror and watch how you do this, so that you are comfortable when you give the presentation. It's not read and it's not memorized, so that it is a natural conversational tone and mood. Now, in the semifinals and the finals, so this is, information for you to keep afterwards. Make sure you remember that you will have to answer questions from the judges, from the adjudicators. As you complete your speech, your presentation, you can get an idea of what people would probably ask you. So you can start to formulate answers, to be prepared. Remember to practice the delivery of answering the questions. You listen carefully, you answer to the entire audience, not to the one judge, to everyone. And so when you give your presentation, the semifinals, and we're watching, remember there's a panel of judges making the decisions. Talk to all of them, be honest. If you don't know something, explain what you can do to learn about it, and then be able to answer in the future. And stay on track. Stay with the theme, the topic of your speech. Now, Ajahn Piyanart.
Yes. Yes. Before I go on to this slide, I'd like to point out a few things that James has mentioned, and I would like to add a few things. I'd like to remind you all that presentation is also a kind of public speaking. So you must use formal language. you can't use colloquial language, yeah, because you're talking to the public. And as James mentioned, we talk live, even though you don't see the audience, but we see you. So there are two things that you need to bear in mind, that your visual expression, which is what you do, we see your facial expression, your hands, your body, your movement. So we see. So first impression is very important, and it's not only first impression, it's all the way through 5 minutes that we look at your personality. Yeah. So what visual expression, what we see, that counts. Secondly is what we hear. What we hear is your voice, the way you use technique like speedy in some part and pause and slow, as well as your own language. James mentioned simplicity in your language. I would like also to add the word honesty. Yeah, you just be honest and share with us. Can I have my picture on the screen, please? Titika, I like to see what I look. So because I'm trying to act. Yes, I'd like to see, both. Now we should have both James and I in the screen, Titi. All right. So we want to hear the variety of your voice, vocal variety. And the key technique of visual expression and vocal expression is light and shade. So not the same thing all the same time, but it has to be very natural, like you're talking, conversational type. You don't recite because that is monotonous. You don't read because we don't see your eyes. Eye contact is very important when you do communicate, right? So you talk using conversation. And James mentioned introductory part is very important because that is the first time we see you, the first time we hear you. So your first sentence should be attention getting, as well as your first slide. It should also be attention getting. So be careful. We're not counting your name and your last name as well as your school name, and that's it. And then you can stop, breathe, then start. Then we know that you start right away. All right. So your first impression, your manner, delivery is very important. Now, let's talk a little bit about the statement of intent. I mentioned the other day that it's necessary to look at the theme and have your own title. For example, like what people say when we talk about the choice mates for us, and his title is Missing Link, the missing link. Yeah. And then he explained what is it. So I think you need to have the title for your presentation. For today, it's okay because it's the role model. It doesn't matter whether or not you have the title, but for the competition, you need to have the title. And as James said, practice is very important. We do have, what time is it now? Oh, student asked, James, how many slides can they have? Can they have like 5 slides? I would say yes, as you're using slides to support your talk, not to distract from your talk. You don't need 15 slides that we just look at the slides and we don't see how you present. You can only have 3, 4, 5 slides. Mind you only have 5 minutes. Yeah. So not too many. 5 would be fine with us. It depends upon the quality of the slides and how you unite your slides and your presentation together. That the slides should be attractive as well as informative as well as persuasive. And you use it parts of your explanation, parts of the statement of intent. So everything, your idea, the way you select content, the way you select slide, it should be, cohesive and united and supporting your statement of intent.
As an example, this presentation I gave, I had 20 slides and I spoke for nearly a half an hour. And some slides were very, very quick, like the John Lennon, they were 2 slides to show you a difference. 5 minutes, you can think of a slide a minute a lot of times.
And that is not, the rule of thumb that a slide a minute. It depends upon, you might spend more time on one slide with just a picture. you know, it depends upon your content and what you would like to convey. Yeah. So I think it is clear now the number of slides you use, the quality of the slides. So I like to see the marking scheme that we use for the selection process. We think about manner as 30%, matter is 30%, and method. This is how you prioritize the content and how you organize your content. That is 10%. Then because this is different from public speaking, so we look at the slides and how you use the technique in terms of color, in terms of font you use, in terms of the feeling, the tone of colors, in terms of the size and pictures, and that would be how you blend it into the content of your talk, which is matter, and how you use manner. But the slide itself and the presentation using the slide, we considered 30%. So all in all, it's 100%. Because during the selection period, we only see your clips. Yeah, we're not going to consider your answering the question. But when in the semifinals, there will be 20 participants that we select, and we provide, let's say, 2 to 3 questions. 3 minutes for the question and answer, which can be 3 questions, 1 question, or 2 questions. We will talk again. Look at the screen now. I think everyone has this. I'm not going to spend more time with it, but I think it is clear there. That will be the criteria we use for semifinals and grand final. So if you have any questions, we have 2 minutes. So students, you can turn on your microphone and you can ask us what in your mind that you would like us to explain. เชิญค่ะ you can ask in English or in Thai, it doesn't matter. James can speak Thai. ถามภาษาไทยก็ได้ลูกค่ะเปิดไมค์ได้แล้วถามได้เลยนะคะ
Wait, you can speak Thai?
yes พูดภาษาไทยเลยลูกจะได้เร็วนะคะถามได้เลย
ขอถามพูดภาษาไทยหน่อยเราก็แค่อยากรู้เฉยๆแค่อยากเห็น
เชิญครับครูไม่ได้ยินคำถามนะครับ
อ๋อผมก็แค่อยากให้เขาพูดภาษาไทยดูเฉยๆแค่นั้นแหละ
อ๋อได้พูดภาษาไทยได้เอาถามเลยค่ะเพราะว่าเดี๋ยวเวลาที่เราแบ่ง
พรีเซนต์วันนี้ใช่ไหมครับ
ค่ะ
พรีเซนต์วันนี้ใช่ไหมครับ
พรีเซนต์วันนี้ค่ะเดี๋ยวเวลาลูกเข้าห้องนะคะก็จะมี4 ห้องนะคะห้องที่1คือครูกับพี่แกรี่ยุทธนาห้องที่2จะเป็นอาจารย์เจมส์ห้องที่3จะเป็นพี่แป้งนะคะแล้วห้องที่4จะเป็นพี่เตยการนัดดานะคะแล้วก็หลังจากลูกพรีเซนต์เนี่ยเดี๋ยวอาจารย์ในแต่ละห้องจะตัดสินใจว่าให้พรีเซนต์ทีละ5 คนแล้วให้ฟีดแบ็กหรือว่าพรีเซนต์ทีละคนแล้วให้ฟีดแบ็กตรงนั้นเนี่ยจะเป็นการตัดสินใจของอาจารย์แต่ละห้องนะคะแล้วก็ให้ฟีดแบ็กก็ถ้าลูกอยากบอกว่าขอฟีดแบ็กเป็นภาษาไทยลูกก็พูดไปเลยนะคะเพราะว่าทุกคนก็พูดได้ทั้งภาษาอังกฤษภาษาไทยค่ะคำถามไหมลูกทุกคนควรจะฟังทุกคนพูดนะลูกเพราะนี่เป็นround zero ไม่มีคะแนนค่ะ
ไม่ทราบว่าตอน semifinals นี่ต้องยืนพรีเซนต์แบบหน้าจอพรีเซนต์เลยใช่ไหมคะ
เป็นแบบนั้นใช่ค่ะใช่นะคะเดี๋ยวก็จะติดต่ออีกทีนึงว่าขอให้โรงเรียนได้ช่วยซัพพอร์ตนักเรียนเพราะเราอยากจะเห็นทั้งตัวเพราะว่าเนื่องจากว่าเวลาเราไปในรอบ grand final นั้นต้องยืนบนเวทีใช่ไหมคะ yes James time's up
You have to sometimes slow down because your mic doesn't keep up with your speech.
โอเคคือพูดเร็วค่ะเชิญค่ะลูก
คือไอ้ที่พูดเมื่อกี้นี่คือทางกิจกรรมจะติดต่อไปทางโรงเรียนให้ใช่ไหมครับหรือว่าพวกเราจะต้องไปติดต่อกันเอาเองอะครับ
ลูกควรติดต่อเองหากลูกมีคำถามมีปัญหาโทรหาคุณแมวได้เลยนะคะลูกติดต่อก่อนว่าทางคณะกรรมการบอกดีถ้าทำได้แต่ถ้าทำไม่ได้มันไม่ใช่ the end of the world มันไม่ใช่ the only way out ใช่ไหมคะนะเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยติดต่อเองแล้วก็มีปัญหาอย่างไรโทรกลับมาหาที่คุณแมวนะคะทางกระทรวงศึกษาเขาจะได้ช่วยติดต่อที่โรงเรียนให้นะคะเชิญค่ะลูก
Everybody is prepared for today?
พร้อมไหมคะ
ขอถามเลยค่ะคือนำเสนอสไลด์เนี่ยค่ะต้องทำยังไงเหรอคะแบบต้องโชว์ให้ดูใช่ไหมคะ
ใช่ค่ะหนูเห็นแบบที่วิทยากรสอนวันนี้ไหมคะของศาสนาเห็นไหมคะก็จะมีหน้าหนึ่งก็จะเป็น เราก็จะเห็นสไลด์ของหนูถูกไหมคะแล้วอีกหน้าหนึ่งเนี่ยครูก็จะพูดกับหนูเท่ากับหนูก็พูดไปแล้วก็มือก็คลิกสไลด์ไปได้กรณีที่หนูครึ่งตัวไม่ได้นะคะในกรณีที่ทำไม่ได้จริงๆหนูทำแบบที่พวกครูทำอยู่นี่คือครึ่งหนึ่งจะเป็นสไลด์แล้วก็เราก็จะมองเห็นหน้าเห็นสายตาแล้วก็เห็นแมนเนอร์เห็นสีหน้าใช่ไหมคะถ้าเราพูดสิ่งที่ดีอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะนะคะตอบคำถามได้ไหมคะค่ะมีอีกไหมคะถามได้
หนูอยากจะบอกว่าในการพรีเซนต์วันนี้มีผลต่อคะแนนในรอบอื่นไหม
ค่ะไม่มีวันนี้เป็น round zero เป็นรอบซ้อมเพื่อเราจะช่วยหนูนะคะว่าหนูยังต้องพูดดังกว่านี้หนูยังต้องพูดเป็นอย่างนี้อะไรอย่างเงี้ยนะคะวันนี้พี่ๆน่ารักมากลูกไม่ต้องกลัวเลยนะคะแล้วเวลาที่เสร็จแล้วเนี่ยหนูอยากให้พี่ๆพูดภาษาไทยได้เลยนะคะเดี๋ยวพี่ๆช่วยบอกไปเลยครับพี่คะหนูขอเป็นภาษาไทยแบบนี้ก็ได้นะคะคุยกับพี่ๆได้เลยเพราะอันนี้เป็นครั้งแรก ที่กระทรวงศึกษาทำแล้วก็เป็นครั้งแรกที่หนูได้เข้ามาแข่งขันด้วยนะคะคำถามต่อไปค่ะได้อีก2คำถามนะ
ครูคะ
ค่ะลูก
ถ้าเกิดไม่นำเสนอเป็น PowerPoint นี่ก็คือเราก็นำเสนอนะคะ แต่ว่าเราไม่ได้นำเสนอใน PowerPoint แต่เรานำเสนอใน Canva แทนจะเป็นไรไหมคะ
นำเสนอในอะไรแทนนะคะ
Canva นะคะ
อ๋อเป็น Canvas แบบภาพเดียวเหรอคะ
เป็นแบบสไลด์อะค่ะ
เป็นสไลด์ใช่ค่ะแล้วไงคะก็เป็นสไลด์
ก็คือยังสามารถทำได้ใช่ไหมคะ
ครูยังไม่เข้าใจคำถามว่าหนูนำเสนอเป็นสไล
คือ
ด์
ว่า Canva มันเป็นเหมือนชื่อแอปที่คล้ายๆ PowerPoint อะค่ะ
เดี๋ยวตร
แต่
ง
ว่า
นี้
ใช้สไลด์เหมือนกันค่ะ
พี่แกรี่ค่ะ
เดี๋ยวผมช่วยตอบได้แคนว่าตรงนี้ถ้าเอาให้ง่ายนะฮะก็สามารถที่จะสกรีนแคปไปลงในสไลด์ได้ไหมครับ หรือว่าอนิเมตใน Canva แล้วเหมือนปิดไมค์อยู่อะครับไม่ได้ยิน
เปิดไมค์ได้ลูกค่ะทุกคนเปิดไมค์ได้เลยนะคะเดี๋ยวฟังพี่แกรี่ค่ะ
เมื่อกี้คนที่ถามนะครับ ก็คือจะบอกว่าถ้าเกิดว่าทำสไลด์ไว้ใน Canva อยู่แล้ว แต่ว่ามันไม่ได้อนิเมตอะไรเนี่ย ถ้าเอาให้ง่ายก็คือตัดไปแปะใส่ PowerPoint ก็ได้ครับ ก็จะได้ง่ายสุดครับผม
แต่ว่าของหนูมันใช้ PowerPoint ไม่ได้อะค่ะ หนูก็เลยทำใน Canva แทน
อ๋อโอ
หนู
เค
ก็เลยอยากจะถามว่านำเสนอใน Canva แทนได้ไหม
อยู่ห้
คะ
องใครลูก
โอเคครับได้ถ้า Canva ได้ครับก็คือถ้าเกิดว่าเราแชร์สไลด์แชร์บน Canva เป็นผ่าน Zoom ก็ใช้ Canva ได้ครับผม
ค่ะ ขอบคุณค่ะ
มีคำถามอีกไหมลูกพี่แกรี่พี่แป้งพี่เตยช่วยกันตอบได้นะคะ ถามซักตรงนี้ให้เสร็จลูกนะคะแล้วเดี๋ยวพอไปอยู่ในห้องเล็กเราจะได้เข้าใจแล้วก็เริ่มฝึกหัดกันเลยนะคะแล้วพี่ก็จะให้ฟีดแบ็กอย่างละเอียดเลยนะคะอาจจะเป็นฟีดแบ็กรวมฟีดแบ็กเดียวแล้วแต่สถานการณ์คนอื่นมีคำถามไหมคะ
We should start.
yes okay so if not นะคะเดี๋ยวพี่ๆก็จะจัดการให้
That's in the break rooms.
break rooms นะคะเข้าไปอยู่ใน break rooms ค่ะจัดการได้เลยนะคะ
ค่ะเดี๋ยวให้น้องๆ